there, it's Saturday and I'm in my clinic. Just had a couple of things I needed to get done, and I wanted to share 2 stories with you from the clinic this week. I had a woman who came in. So if you know anything about my clinic, I run pretty much a hybrid clinic. We do a lot of workers' comp, but we also see a lot of cash types of patients. Now, we're out of network with just about every insurance, and there's a way that we answer the phones and how we talk to people. But we had this one woman that was referred to us, and she fell and she broke her hand. And she called us because we were recommended to see her. She needed a splint made for a hand fracture. Now, she sort of came, like on the phone, she was kind of irritable. She was irritated. She wasn't really sure if she wanted to come to us. She was still shopping around, and we're kind of like, okay, go ahead and shop around. But at the end of the day, we're the best people to be able to help you. Now, regardless of whether you actually decide to come in or not, like, we're still going to help you make a decision on whether you want to come in to see us or not. So she ended up deciding to come in to see us, and she had an attitude on the phone, and when she came in, she was not warm and fuzzy at all. Now, one thing that happens is when people come to see us, they're not in the best shape of their lives, right? They're not feeling good. People who have injuries feel some kind of way about their injury. I don't know if you've ever injured yourself, but I've injured myself way too many times to count. And every single time I've done it, I have felt like a dumbass. You just like want to kick yourself for being so stupid to have an accident happen. Like, accidents happen all the time, but either way, we always kind of feel like, damn it, why are we so dumb? And she fell, and if you ever imagine, see if you can see this in your patients. Your patients won't ever tell you like that until later on. But she was irritated. She was kind of like, well, how much are you gonna pay? And I brought her in, started talking to her about what we can do to help her. And I told her, I said, well, listen, what we can do is, normally if you're coming in and you don't have insurance, or you're okay not using insurance, we have a flat rate for therapy, and we have a flat rate for making a custom fitted orthosis. Now, because we have to go through insurance, we have to bill it to them. And so then we have our own fee schedule, meaning what we charge, but then we have to compare to what they charge, and then you pay 35%. That was her copay or co-insurance or whatever. And so I can't be definitive to tell you exactly how much. So we talked about it, and she was like still in agreement that she wanted the custom fitted orthosis. And what I did was I explained to her exactly what I was going to do and why I was going to do what I was going to do. She came in, turns out that she fractured her hand, right? So she came in and she was like, I fractured my hand. So she came in with a kind of like an ulnar gutter splint, kind of like those casts from the ER. So it stopped her from here. So it didn't allow her to bend fully or extend fully, but it stopped her from here, and then it had her wrist all the way down here. And so we took it off, and she was like, yeah, I broke my hand. Well, there's a lot of muscles in the hand. So when you palpate, you can palpate and say, okay, well, is it this finger? So I always go off on the sides that don't hurt first. And when they're like, that's not where it's hurting, I'm like, well, good. Because I actually want to go to the spots that don't hurt you before I go to the spot that I know it's going to hurt you. So based on that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to touch here. How does that feel? No, boom, yep, that hurt. Boom, yep, that hurt. So it's between pretty much distal, proximal P1 and distal metacarpal. But it ended up being this finger right here based on where she had the most pain. So I ended up explaining to her, what we're going to be able to do with the custom orthosis, that actually we were going to make the one that she had, we're gonna make it so much better, because we're gonna allow her fingers to move so she could be functional and she could type and all that stuff. And we're gonna put her in a certain type of position that's gonna allow for optimal healing, but allow motion so she doesn't get complications from the injury that she had. And then we're gonna cut it right off at the wrist, because we don't need to include that because those bones down there didn't break. So she can move her wrist. And all of a sudden, because I was able to sort of explain what I was doing and why I was doing it to benefit her, her attitude started to change. She was like, yeah, that's what I want, right? So sometimes the moral of the story here, sometimes people are gonna come into your clinic, be on the phone talking to you, and they're just not in a great place because of who we help, right? We help people who are in pain, who have injuries, and they just don't feel good. And so we sort of have to come in and accept a certain amount of that baggage, of that crap that they come in with. And if we can see beyond that to help that person, we're gonna be less frustrated, right? Not only are we gonna help someone else, but it puts us in a best position possible so that we are less frustrated. So if I could put myself and empathize with someone and say, okay, this is why they're gonna be nasty to me, I won't take that. It's like a little bit right off my shoulders, right? I don't care. It's not me that they're mad at, right? So if you can kind of fundamentally believe that and know that to be true, you won't get frustrated, because they're just frustrated with their injury, they're frustrated with themselves, and they are, they just don't feel good, right? She hasn't washed her hands in 2 weeks. She doesn't feel good. And everything about her life is very inconvenient, right? So that was one. Then she came in, and then she was talking, and then she was like, oh, and therapy sucks, therapy sucks because it's painful, right? So she has this idea of therapy. And so I said, oh my gosh, what makes you say that? Because I thought we were having a wonderful time, and we are making this wonderful splint for you so you can feel so good. And what makes you think therapy sucks and that therapy is painful? Because we're doing none of that right now, right? So I'm like, have you had therapy before? It's such a powerful question, because it's going to put you into an understanding of where they are. So I said, well, have you been in therapy before? Have you been somewhere where they caused you a lot of pain, or you had surgery before? Oh no, I've never had surgery. Thank God I've never broken a bone. I've never got injured. I've never had surgery. Okay, perfect. Well, then what makes you say that therapy really sucks? And she said, she goes, well, I've always heard other people tell me that therapy is really painful. I said, well, as an occupational therapist and someone who specializes in hands, I really know. And that's when you throw in occupational therapy. So, well, based on what you're experiencing today, have I put you in a lot of pain? Or are we getting something that's so cumbersome that doesn't allow you to move into something super small and really comfortable and lightweight, and it's gonna fit you like a glove? And then she was like, well, yes. Well, actually. And then she was able to turn her story around in terms of what therapy meant, because no one really wants to buy therapy, right? It's not like buying a nice bottle of wine. It's not like going on vacation. It's not like buying new shoes, right? Therapy is essentially like a grudge purchase. Like, you don't really want to have to spend hundreds of dollars on therapy, but you will if it makes you feel really good. So it's really important to point that out to your patients, how good you're making them feel, right? In a real subtle way that they'll see it. So in a way, you have to ask those questions. So, well, has it been really that painful? Is it that bad? We haven't even done anything. And all we're doing right now is trying to help minimize that pain that you have. She came in, her finger was a little bent, and so it was painful. right? So I'm like, you just broke your finger. It's been 2 weeks. We don't need to do anything very aggressive. Like, first of all, I don't want you to be in a lot of pain. Obviously, some injuries are worse than others, and yeah, they might have to be in pain, but for you, I'm gonna tie it back to them. For you, it doesn't need to be painful. We wanna make it really comfortable. So I ended up making her splint, so it's this finger. So I made her an ulnar gutter that actually included the long finger as well. If it was the small finger that broke, I would include the ring finger. But since it was the ring finger, I wanted to make sure I encompass the long finger too. And I made her an ulnar gutter that went around like this. Now, and then it allowed her eyepiece to come down, right? Her PI piece to come down, and then it was gonna block her to block extension. And then she wanted me to cut it lower, and I was like, no. We want it to block you. She's like, it's blocking me. We want that. I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly where I want it to be, right? So I want it to block you, because in that blocking, it's gonna help you just naturally move that big knuckle straight, right? And then I wanna make sure that it's giving you support here, down here, all of your hand down here, but it's not gonna really block you from moving down. And of course, moving down hurts more. So whatever you can do right now, we're still really early in your process, you shouldn't cause yourself any pain. Now, the reason why I did an ulnar gutter versus a dorsal block splint, which is one of my favorite splints to make, is a dorsal block splint, was because she needed to type, and she does a lot with this. And so I said, we'll go ahead and leave that open. Normally I'd do a block splint if it was this, the index finger and the long finger, right? And then depending on what's going on with the ring finger. But for her, and specifically she works at the computer and stuff like that, I made her just a little bit of a wider ulnar gutter. But the point of the story is that people are gonna be some kind of way with you when they first come in, and you have an opportunity to change their attitude towards not you, but their injury, right? Not necessarily you, but their injury. I was able to change her attitude around, not about me and about therapy or whatever, but her injury, that this is possible, that no matter how inconvenient and how painful it is, that there's hope that she can get better. And that in turn calmed her down, right? That in turn calmed her down. It had nothing to do with me. Like, I don't need her to love me. I just need her to see that there's hope for her. That's the number one point of the story. And the number point two of the story is you can affect so many more people, affecting one person at a time, right? So you can tell people why you're doing what you're doing. So when they have a better understanding of the power of occupational therapy, physical therapy, hand therapy, in that particular moment in time, you can change someone's idea or ideals of what therapy means for them, because that's all they care about. They care about themselves, they care about their hand, they care about how they're going to go back to doing what they need to do without the cumbersome, without the problems that they currently coming to you for. So if you can change that one particular person's perspective on therapy, you are winning. Because when that person sees that therapy actually isn't that bad, and actually it's great, she left like, this is great, I'm so happy, I'll be back. I made the recommendation to come back in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, so we could get started once we can start weaning out the splint. But right now it's full time. Just wear the splint, just let your hand calm down, and then we'll follow up in 2 weeks time and get you back on the schedule and show you what else you can do, what else is possible for your hand, so you don't have any complications and you actually get your hand to where it was before, right? So I can change that one person's point of view about occupational therapy, about hand therapy, and about their injury. And from that one person, they can, over time, tell other people about, therapy is actually really good. and it's not bad at all. So one person at a time, but those were one story, but 2 points, 2 major points that hopefully that you can take into any situation, any patients that you have. That's not just going to help the people that you serve in your community, but help you so that your job is so much easier, so much more rewarding, and so much less frustrating. All right, so hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week.